Here now, Republican Congressman Devin Nunes, ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee. Congressman Nunes, thank you for being here tonight.
It's great to be with you.
So is John Ratcliffe qualified for this job? Is he a good pick?
Well, he's a great friend of mine. He's been invaluable on the Intelligence Committee. He really, I think his strong suit is he really knows the law as a former U.S. attorney. And that's what we need in that position. I think you saw Lindsey Graham there mention about the DNI. It's really gotten way too big. It's become duplicative, as Senator Graham said.
I want to ask you about that, because that position was created after 9/11.
Yeah.
Because the problem was that the intelligence agencies weren't keeping each other apprised of what information they had. That's a pretty serious issue that came up on 9/11, that the FBI didn't know what the CIA was doing, and that perhaps if they had, and I remember George Tenet writing about this, if they had been talking to each other, we might have known what was coming. So don't we need someone, and doesn't that person need to be?
So absolutely, that's why the DNI was stood up and created. But what's happened with all bureaucracies is they become bloated. And now you have something that was supposed to be, I was there, I voted to create it. Yeah. The original reason to create it was for it to be a strategic planning arm, really, to look and make sure that everyone is communicating. What they started to do is they started to duplicate efforts. In addition to that, you also have to look at the problems that we've had in terms of trying to get documents, trying to get things declassified. John Ratcliffe is the one who was in the middle of all of uncovering what really what I call the dirty cops did at DOJ and FBI. He was one of the most reliable people that we had.
I mean, that's probably one of the reasons that a lot of Democrats are going to vote against him.
I'm sure all 47 are going to vote against him.
They're going to see him as the president putting someone in to keep an eye on the intelligence agencies. That's what they're going to say, I would imagine.
And one other important point that I want to make sure we point out. One of the jobs of the DNI was to figure out the security clearance process, to fix it. Yeah. And now the security clearance process today is much worse than what it was when we created the DNI.
Maybe putting the right person in there, we can clean some of that up. I mean, his qualifications are not all that different than Dan Coates, who had the job, in terms of what his background is, also on the Intelligence Committee, as you say. So we'll see where that goes. In terms of the briefing on coronavirus, you were in that room. Here's what Chairman Adam Schiff said this: the president and vice president don't inspire confidence, and because the president has made so many false statements about so many things, you really can't rely on the White House, says Chairman Adam Schiff. What did you make of that briefing, and what do you make of that statement?
Well, probably the most important thing that we could do if we're going to stop anyone from meeting, and I only say this half joking, is for Congress to stop meeting. I was in that hearing. It was a lot of yelling, a lot of blaming, a lot of name calling, and look, this is a serious issue. People are worried. We don't know a lot about this because the Chinese have been so secretive about it, and so folks that were claiming that the president just weeks ago was trying to, he was being racist because he was talking, and now that ends up being exactly the right thing to do.
I think the American people would be so happy if both sides sort of said, you know what, let's put it all aside and let's just deal with this. It's a health problem that's facing the United States, but it seems like everybody can't even help themselves from using all of these situations, any situation, as a way to hammer each other.
And the American people actually might be happy if the Congress just shut its lights down for about 3 months.
Yeah, everybody go into quarantine for a little while.
We could use that.
Quick question for you about this Ukraine investigation that is now looking into the firing of Viktor Shokin. So everybody remembers that a lot of this goes back to Vice President Biden and saying that he wanted him to leave, which was, sort of the policy of the White House, and Congress was also interested in that at the time as well. So people are going to look at this and say, oh, there's the investigation that the president wanted. It's finally happening in Ukraine. Is that what's happening?
Well, the issues in Ukraine, as always, go back to the Hillary Clinton campaign and the Democrats. They can wish it away. They can build narratives if they'd like. But the truth of the matter remains that the Democrats paid operatives to go to Ukraine and dig up dirt on the Trump campaign. and took an unprecedented step to have even the ambassador, Ukrainian ambassador here in Washington, D.C., a diplomat no less, take shots at the Republican candidate for president. So the fact that there were definitely shenanigans that went on in Ukraine, that is a fact.
But the question is, did anyone in this country, anyone connected to the president, encourage this investigation to begin, which is now underway?
Not that I'm aware of, and even that whole argument. Have you spoken to anybody
over there about making sure this investigation happens? No, but not only that,
the folks that I have talked to in the past, never, through all this, and we're going back to impeachment hoax time here, but no one ever talked about the Ukrainians opening up investigations. Think about that for a second. It only takes a little common sense. Ukraine's corrupt. Why on earth would anybody want Ukraine of all people to...
Well, the president asked Zelensky to please look into it.
Different. He didn't ask him to do investigations. And that was the whole, that's the whole mix-up.
What's the difference?
Look into this means, I think what the president was talking about at the time was the same thing we were looking for as Republicans. What we were trying to find, or do they have any documentation as to what the Clinton campaign was doing into the 2016 election and why so many senior leadership of Ukraine, what they were up to. I don't think there was any connection to Shokin or Biden or anyone.
And you just to close, there's no, you don't know of anybody in our government who has talked to them recently about opening up this investigation.
I would think that, sadly, I think our relationships with Ukraine are quite strained. Because any Ukrainian you talk to now, you're immediately trying to do something against Joe Biden. They would
not want it to look like they were being pushed by anybody.
And I'm just Joe Biden is gone. He's not going to. I mean, he may win South Carolina. He's not going to be the president of the United States.
We'll see. We'll save the tape. Thank you very much, Devin Nunes. Good to see you, Congressman. Thanks for being here.